Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Namo Shivaya Krishna Vishnaya Bhutale Shrimade Bhakti Swami Namo Shivaya Krishna Vishnaya Bhutale Shrimade Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Guru Prasarani Nirvishesha Shunyavari Pasta Deveshadari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nanda Shri Vedanta Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vedanta Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna, welcome back to day 6 of our study of Sri Vedanta Samantaka. So yesterday we started with the first chapter called as the first Kiran or Prathama Kiran. A couple of things before we start today with respect to yesterday's class. So yesterday there was an error in the chapter's name. So it's ascertaining the evidences. The supreme nature of the absolute truth will come in the second chapter. So the first chapter is ascertaining the evidences, which was incorrect yesterday. And one more point which I made yesterday was that the philosophy of Christianity was derived, or it was propagated by Aristotle and Plato, but actually the philosophers, because Aristotle and Plato actually appeared before the advent of Jesus Christ, sometime in BC, some 500, 600 years back in BC. So Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, they come from that Greek philosophy. But what I said was not totally incorrect also. The philosophers or the theologians of Christianity, they actually derived their philosophy from the works of Aristotle and Plato. So that is how it was. So Aristotle and Plato actually did not directly contribute to the philosophy of Christianity, but their work was used to arrive whatever concepts that they explained. These concepts were derived, or the Christian philosophy was influenced by these works. So these are the two things which I wanted to clarify before we start today's session. Yesterday we had a discussion of the Pramana and Prameya. Okay, a technical topic. Understood, it's technical topic, it's a bit of stretch, but because Srila Radha Damodar Goswami has given this to us, we have to study it, we have to understand it, and Vedantic study goes in this manner. Okay, so we may not be discussing lots of stories and other things, but this is the technical study. So Vedantic study means it's like this. But anyways, today there are several interesting topics, and we'll also be able to see some analogies today. So we discussed yesterday about Pramana and Prameya. So Pramana is that which, okay, where is it? Yeah, I think after this, before this. Yeah, here is it, yeah. So Pramana is an instrumental cause of valid knowledge. So Prama means valid knowledge, and valid knowledge is defined as that perception or the knowledge which agrees with the actual reality of things. With respect to our Vedantic study, for us, we are looking at the premise that we are in search of the absolute truth. We have to approach the absolute truth, we have to find the cause of all causes, and we have to define the purpose of our life and lead our life accordingly. So that is our Prameya, this is what we want to achieve. And Pramana, which leads us to that understanding, is what we are going to discuss here. So we discussed yesterday that we discussed also that depending upon what we want to know and what we want to learn, our pramanas can be different. If I want to learn about a very simple object, a material object, Pratyaksha Pramana should suffice. If I want to understand some nuances of a particular object, maybe inference, direct perception, Pratyaksha along with Anumana, inference would also be required. But if we have to learn about something which is beyond our perception and beyond our logical understanding, it's beyond our logical faculties, then we would have to refer to the Shabda Pramana, or we have to ask the authorities to give us proper understanding of that particular subject matter. So here we saw also that this, our understanding, our study is aiming at the highest kind of knowledge obtainable, which is personal realization of the absolute truth. right? And we discussed the 4 defects, and we also saw that different philosophers, different schools of thought refer to different pramanas. So this is just a study of the pramanas, and this study is mentioned here by Srila Radha Damodar Goswami to lead us in the direction that these, some of these philosophers, the pramanas which they accept, are actually not full in themselves to lead us to the supreme absolute truth. So we saw the Charvak accepts only direct perception, only pratyaksha, and then Vaisheshika is both direct perception and inference, and so on. So we have already discussed this yesterday. We will not spend much time on that. With respect to Charvak, Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan in his gloss to this Vedanta Samantaka, he comments that Charvaka philosophy includes different other philosophies also. So this, he comments that according to the Haima Kosha 3.526, it's a lexicon composed by Hemachandra in the 12th century. The words Barhaspatya, Nastika, Charvak and Lokayitika are all synonyms. And then he explains each of these terms. He says, one expert in the treatise written by Brihaspati is called Barhaspatya. Okay, so we'll come to that, what it actually means. One who thinks that there is no next life, Na Asti, is called Nastika. We have different definition of Nastika. We say one who does not have faith in the Vedic scriptures is a Nastik, and one who accepts the Vedic Pramana, he is a Astika. But those who do not accept Vedic Pramana, they also do not accept next life also. So for them they are also called Nastika. Well, Buddhism is a bit different, just to give a side point, because although it's a Nastika school of thought, they do believe in reincarnation. And how that works, it's very difficult to understand. We'll not get into that, into their philosophy. It's not required also. Another is one who enjoys charvati oneself or is good at enjoying with young girls is called Charvak. Modern materialistic philosophy. We have to relate to that. One who studies or knows the treatise written by Brihaspati, which is widely spread among people, is called Laukayatika or Lokayatika. Now, who is this Brihaspati? We have heard of Brihaspati as the guru of the demigods. So there are two understandings with respect to this. We will see what it means. Next, Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan writes, according to Mitakshara, which is Vigneshwara's commentary on the Yajnavalkya Smriti, characteristics foreign to those prescribed in the Shruti are called Pashanda, and those who bear them are called Pashandis. So they all come under this broad category of Charvak. Now Brihaspati, according to Maitrayani Upanishad, Brihaspati, the preceptor of the demigods, assumed the form of Shukracharya, who is the preceptor of the demons, and propounded the system to bewilder and destroy the demons. So, there are two pakshas. There is this demigods and then there are demons. There are this suras and then there are asuras. So, it is mentioned in this Upanishad that Brihaspati, he took the form of Shukracharya, and to divert them away from actual proper Vedic knowledge so that they further fall down into abyss, Brihaspati took the form of Shukra, and then he propagated all this Nastika philosophy, this Charvak, Lokayitika, Barhaspatya, then Pashanda, all these different philosophies he explained to the demons, and that is how the demons got bewildered. Okay, so this is the only reference we have. But according to scholars, this Brihaspati, who actually propagated this Nastika philosophy, is different from the guru of the demigods. So there are two contentions. So which one is correct, we do not know. But there are references, and Baldev Vidyabhushan also does not mention this very clearly, which Brihaspati is referring to. But there is a treatise written by Brihaspati. Now, which Brihaspati wrote that, we do not know, but that is called as Barhaspatya, or one who follows Brihaspati is also called Barhaspatya, and the text, the treatise written by Brihaspati is also, I think, called as Barhaspatya only. And Lokayitika, we are familiar with this term. Srila Prabhupada mentions this in his purport. I think to chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita, he mentions there are two people, Lokayatikas and Vaibhashakas. So they are atheistic philosophies, he mentions. So these Lokayatikas are the followers of Charvaka, or they are in line of Charvaka and follow the treatise written by Brihaspati. And Vaibhashikas are one school of Buddhism. So that way both are completely materialistic that way. Okay, so this is just a brief introduction to what Baldev Devbhushan gives as his gloss on the Charvak philosophy. Now we are going to define the pramanas. Just to save time, I'm not actually reading all this text. Okay, so because the translation is quite good in line with this text. So there are 8. Now we discussed yesterday, there are 8 pramanas, and on top of that we have 2 more which actually are not mentioned here, that is Cheshta and Arsha. But we will discuss that also a little bit while discussing the references. So among these 8, Pratyaksha is the proximity of a sense organ to a sense object, such as when one understands that I see an earthen pot with my eyes. Now, one more thing which I would like to mention here is that the examples which are used in this book are quite traditional. Okay, so we may not be able to relate to them contemporarily, but these examples actually make a very good point of making the concepts very clear so that we can understand easily. So we will see some examples like all these different pramanas, their understanding, their analysis are supplied with their specific examples. These examples might seem a bit funny also, but these are traditional examples which are actually being used. So this is a very simple example here. I see an earthen pot with my eyes. So when you see a pot with your eyes, you know that it exists and you can get information about it. So we have been discussing that with respect to this table from like 2-3 classes we discussed that. So that's Pratyaksha, very simple. Some more details. So okay, just on one more thing. See, the font color determines the actual text. So this color, this I don't know what, violet or pinkish color is actually the text of Vedanta Samantaka. This dark bluish color is basically the translation of the text, and the one which are in this brown color are actually references. Okay, so when we read through that, anyway I'll mention when we are going through this, but this brown color is actually the references which is not part of the actual text, but we are actually, or I have added it so that the understanding becomes clear.
The slogan seems to be so big.
Yes.
We have small translation.
No, translation is more. There are lots of translations, it will come. Okay. Because the shloka, the verse itself is quite big, but all the translation is there. I have included the references in between so that it becomes easier for us to refer to and follow the text. Right? So Pratyaksha, this is from Tattva Sandarbha actually. So Pratyaksha or sense perception is the means of knowing the world outside ourselves through contact with the mind and senses. Each of the 5 Jnanendriyas or input senses has its own proper kind of object, visible form for the sense of sight, the feel of things for the sense of touch, and so on. The mind further processes the perceptions of the 5 senses, adding verbal understanding and thoughts connected by logic. According to some of the commentators on Gautam's Nyaya philosophy, there are 2 types of pratyakshas. There is Nirvikalpa pratyaksha, is raw perception before it is categorized and becomes Savikalpa, a definite perception. The way the image of a cow is soon recognized as a cow. Okay. So what it actually means is that Pratyaksha includes the senses, our 5 Jnanendriyas, and it also includes the mind. Okay. So perception is also like there are some things which we cannot perceive directly through our senses, but through our mind, like feelings, love and affection, pain, right? That which arises from the mind. So these are also perception. These are also categorized under Pratyaksha Pramana only. Okay, because we don't need inference to understand whether a person loves me or not. The affection that a person shows, we feel that, we experience that. So that kind of experience is also Pratyaksha only. So mind is used for those things, whereas senses are gross. So you can get gross perception from the senses. Now there are 2 types of Pratyaksha. It's mentioned there is Nirvikalpa Pratyaksha and Savikalpa Pratyaksha. So Nirvikalpa Pratyaksha means raw perception. See, when we go out in the world, we see so many things, but we do not give proper attention to those things. Right? So if something is very familiar to us, we may be passing through that particular object several times, but will not give proper attention to that particular object. So no knowledge or additional knowledge is gained with respect to that. If when we are going, say in the street, or even when we are in the house, then there is a familiarity to us. Or I think the better example is to when we are going in the road. There are so many things that is happening around us. There are so many things that we see, but then our mind is focused on only specific things when we are traveling, right? Whether I'm traveling properly, which lane I'm going through, which kind of traffic is going from my left side, right side, those kind of things. Although my senses are actually experiencing several things. I'm hearing so many sounds, but I'm not giving attention to that. No, I am feeling the air, I'm feeling the heat, this, that and all, but I may not be giving lots of attention to those things. So sense perception is happening, right? The senses are coming in contact with the sense objects, but I am not giving it a conscious thought to gain knowledge about these things. I am completely focused on the task at hand, correct? So this acceptance of information from the sense objects by our senses is called nirvikalpa pratyaksha. So the information is coming in, but I am not giving it proper attention. So that is nirvikalpa. It has not been categorized. It has not been completely understood yet. Then there is savikalpa, a definite perception, because I am giving thought to that particular sense object and I want to learn about it. This is also similar. No? We might be sitting in Bhagavatam class, but our mind is somewhere else. Although we are hearing, although we are trying to concentrate and all, but sometimes the mind goes somewhere else, and although we are hearing things, but we will not be able to understand, or we do not know, oh, what did the speaker say? Mind is off. So that is nirvikalpa pratyaksha. Although the information is going in, but no understanding of that. Now when we are paying attention to that, then it becomes savikalpa. So sense perception or pratyaksha works with these two. The senses are coming in contact with the sense objects. They are gathering information, but at the same time, the mind should also be focused onto that. Then only we will be able to gain knowledge. Correct? So this is the discussion about pratyaksha. Then we go to anuman. Now anuman is a means of inferential knowledge. Like knowledge about fire from an inference, such as, since there is smoke on the hill, there must be fire on the hill. So this is a very classic example which is used in philosophical treatises. So if there is a smoke, there is a fire. So I already have an understanding that wherever there is fire, there is a possibility of smoke. So I have this knowledge. But when I go to a mountain side and I'm seeing smoke at the top of the mountain, I'm not seeing fire at all. So it's not pratyaksha. But I am making an inference. I'm using my logic. Oh, I know that wherever there is fire, there is smoke. And because I see a smoke, therefore there must be fire on top of the mountain. So although pratyaksha I am not seeing the fire, but still the knowledge of the presence of fire is understood by me because of the knowledge of the smoke or by seeing that smoke. So this is called logic. This inferential knowledge called anuman. Then shabda is a statement from a reliable authority, apta. It's called apta vakya. We'll discuss more about this. Such as when someone says there are 5 trees on the bank of the river, or when the scriptures make statements such as Agnishtomena Swarga Kamo Yajeta. One who desires to attain the heavenly planets should perform the Agnishtoma sacrifice. Your knowledge like this, to go to the heavenly planets, one should perform the Agnishtoma sacrifice. Now this knowledge can be attained only when someone comes and tells us. Through my pratyaksha, through my anuman, I'll never be able to understand. Some things I can understand, but some things I cannot. Right? So Shabda is that. As Jiva Goswami's commentary, he writes the ancient Nyaya school, or actually, this is actually Gopi Paranadhara Prabhu's commentary on Tattva Sandarbha. He explains this concept of Shabda. He writes, the ancient Nyaya school of sage Gautama defines the verbal means of acquiring correct knowledge as Apta Vakya, the words of reliable authorities. This definition is broad enough to include both Vedic scripture and the teachings of ordinary authorities. The experts in any field of knowledge who actually know their field should be reliable. I have no reason to doubt my mother's testimony that the man she says is my father is actually my father, and so on. And so on this matter, I accept her as an authority. So here also it's Shabda Pramana only. When the mother speaks to the child saying, this is your father, this is Shabda Pramana. The child does not have any faculties or any way to understand who his father is without the mother's information. That is Shabda Pramana, but that is Paurushaya Shabda. So again with the Shabda there are 2 categories, there is Paurushaya and Apaurushaya Shabda. Paurushaya Shabda is an authority who is authority for ordinary teachings or ordinary knowledge. Who is my father? Okay, this is your father. This is Paurushaya Shabda. So the mother is not infallible authority. She is the infallible authority for this particular subject matter with respect to who the father is. But then she is not the infallible authority with respect to who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. Unless, of course, she comes in parampara and all. But when we are speaking about a normal woman who teaches her child that this is your father. So this is Paurusha Shabda. Then, so Vedic scriptures are also come under the category of Shabda, or they are the category of Shabda. And ordinary authorities also, they also come under the category of Shabda only. Sri Jiva Goswami, however, points to Shabda Pramana, verbal testimony, in its higher sense of Vedic scripture as the only infallible means of knowledge. Human authorities may or may not be as reliable as we presume them to be, and therefore the reliability of their opinions is never absolute. Okay. So, now there might be several questions regarding this, because we achieve the Shabda Pramana or Veda, verbal testimony also, through human authorities. Correct? And here Jiva Goswami says human authorities may or may not be reliable as we presume them to be, and therefore the reliability of their opinions is never absolute. But if the reliability of human beings or human authority is never absolute, then how can we accept Vedic scriptures through a guru? So we will come to that understanding also when we will discuss more about the Shabda Pramana. Next is Upamana. Now the first three, Pratyaksha, Anumana and Shabda, we have a good understanding of it because Prabhupada explains that in several of his lectures, and it's also mentioned in his books. There are other Pramanas also. Something called as Upamana. It's a means of comparative knowledge. Knowledge about the relation between the name and the named, such as the name Gavaya and the animal Gavaya, Gayal. In the sentence, Go Sadrisho Gavayaha, a Gayal is like a bull, is called comparative knowledge. Knowledge of similarity is the means of such comparative knowledge. So Gayal is an animal which is found in the hilly regions. No, it's in the species of bison. I hope you have heard of bison, found in hill stations and other places, in forests basically. So it is mentioned, Go Sadrisho Gavayaha. This Gavaya looks like a cow. Okay, so a person who knows how a cow looks like, he will be able to understand, or he will be able to make some assumption, or he will have some conception of how this animal called as Gayal looks like. Correct? So this comparative knowledge, or getting knowledge through the similarity of some other object with that particular object, is called as Upamana. Okay, so this is what it is. Then Arthapati. Arthapati is conjecture of another means to explain something that is observed as being unexplained. For instance, Devadatta is fat but does not eat during the day. Here, since Devadatta does not eat during the day, his fatness being unexplained, it leads to the conjecture that he eats at night. Correct? So, Devadatta is fat, and normally a person who eats a lot, he becomes fat, he becomes healthy. But then Devadatta, we see he's healthy, but then he's not eating any time during the day. So how is it possible that he's healthy? How is it possible that he's fat? Because the fatness is unexplained here, it leads to a logical conclusion, a conjecture or a postulation that, oh, maybe this Devadatta is eating at night. That is why he's healthy. Correct. So this is another form of pramana. Now, if we have understood this Anuman Pramana, Pratyaksha Pramana a little bit, we will be able to kind of put within our mind that these Pramanas are actually not independent. They are just an extension of the other three Pramanas, Pratyaksha and Anuman and Shabda. We'll discuss that in detail, but we'll be able to make sense, a little bit, that okay, this conjecturing that he eats at night is actually kind of looks like Anuman Pramana only, right? Anupalabdhi is the absence of cognition. Now, cognition means sense perception. Okay, sense perception and gaining knowledge in the consciousness. By non-cognition of objects such as an earthen pot, the non-existence of an earthen pot and so on is determined. Thus, by the evidence of absence or abhava, the non-existence of objects like an earthen pot is comprehended. So, what knowledge have we gained? An earthen pot is not present on top of this table. So, the knowledge which I have gained is that the pot is not present here. Sometimes we lose something, if we lose our keys, or if we lose our object, or we have kept our phone somewhere else, and we think that okay, maybe I kept my phone or the keys on this particular table. Then I go to that particular table, then I see, but then there's an abhava, it's not present there. So I have gained that knowledge that my keys are not present in this table. So that knowledge has been gained that the keys are not present, or my phone is not present, or this particular object is not present. Correct. So although we have not gained that object, but the knowledge about the absence of that object has been gained. So therefore this is called as Anupalabdhi. This is also one of the Pramanas. Then Sambhava is the concept of inclusion, such as in the understanding that 10 is included within 100. It's simple. So if there's a higher number, then the lower number is also included within that. That is Sambhava. Aitihya is something that is well known from tradition coming down from unidentified narrators. For instance, when it is said there is a yaksha living in this banyan tree. So Aitihya is coming from tradition. So the source of that tradition is actually not known, but because it's coming from generations in that family line, then we tend to accept it as an authority. So very famous, not famous, but people speak about this Kuladevam or Kuladevata like this. My family deity is this. It's very prominent in Tamil Nadu and other places also, that my Kuladevata, this is what we worship. We have been worshipping this from generations in this family. Now, there might not be any Vedic authority or Vedic pramana for that. Aitihya is what is the pramana which is applicable to this Kuladevata. So, traditionally, if we see in previous maybe 100, 200, 300 years back, people do not move a lot the way they are moving a lot now. So, these facilities of nice roads, buses, cars, vehicles, then trains, flights, these were not available before. If a person has to travel, he had only multiple ways of doing that. Either he can travel through horses or chariots drawn by horses or bullock cart, or he has to walk. So normally in traditional society, people do not move so much. So if they are born in that particular place, they stay in that place itself, they not move around much. And if they have to move, they go to some other place, it's a holy place, a tirtha. They'll go to that tirtha, and that tirtha yatra itself will be 6 months, 1 year long. They have to walk all the way and then come back. It used to work like that. So because people were not moving so much, they used to establish specific temples and deities for that particular village or the locality in which they lived, and they used to worship that particular deity, Ishtadevata. And from then on, their descendants, that family's descendants, and their descendants, they worship that same deity as their Kuladevata. And if we ask, in the present generation now, if we ask who is your Kuladevata, they'll tell some obscure place in some remote place of Tamil Nadu, oh, that is my Kuladevata, like that. Because he's coming in that particular line, so he says that, okay, this is my Kuladevata, but actually he has moved out of that particular place. Correct? So this is tradition. The tradition was established because people were not moving so much, so Kuladevata concept was established like that. They were worshipping in the village itself. But then after people moved out also, still this concept continues because the tradition is being handed down from the previous generation, who learned from their previous generation and who learned from their previous generation. So this concept, this pramana is called as Aitihya. It may have a Vedic pramana, or it may not have any Vedic backing for Aitihya. So it can be both ways. Then, okay, 9th. So it's mentioned, we have discussed 8. Some also accept a gesture that conveys knowledge, like cheshta, as a kind of evidence, such as indicating that there are 10 pots by raising the 10 fingers. So one is not speaking, okay, one is not seeing it, but just by saying, okay, how many objects are there on this particular table? Oh, these many objects, or these many objects are there. One shows, that is called as cheshta. And another one is arsha. Arsha means the words of the rishis who are coming or who are considered as authorities. So arsha, again, arsha also, it can be misused, and arsha can be perfect pramana also. If the rishis are coming in Vedic parampara, then the authority of these rishis should be accepted. But then there's those rishis also who speculate and who say that this is proper knowledge. Just like we saw these 5 different philosophies, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, then Sankhya, Yoga, then Purvamimamsa. They are all rishis. And Nasa Rishiryasya Matamna Bhinnam. Their opinions do not match. So therefore, this Arsha are basically these rishis who propagate a particular philosophy or particular line of thought, and then they are accepted as authority or pramana for that particular line. So these are the total 10 pramanas. So we will discuss how of these 8 pramanas that we have discussed till now, including the two. The two are not specifically mentioned by Radha Damodar Goswami. These 8 pramanas, of these 8 pramanas, 5 pramanas are actually part of the first 3 itself. So they come under the category of Pratyaksha, Anuman and Shabda. So they are just a special extension of Pratyaksha, either Anuman or either Shabda. We'll see that, but before that, Sri Radha Damodar Goswami gives an analysis of the prominent pramanas, Pratyaksha Pramana and Anuman Pramana. Okay. So he says, he is speaking about a misunderstanding of Charvak, of how Pratyaksha Pramana is actually not quite useful at all for gaining any type of knowledge. Okay, it's very rudimentary. You can gain some type of knowledge, but to gain proper knowledge from Charvak, it is actually not possible at all. So among these philosophers, Charvak, who propounds only direct perception, cannot possibly enlighten a person who is devoid of knowledge, who has doubtful knowledge, or who has mistaken knowledge. So now here he gives these 3 categories. So if a person is ignorant of something, of a subject matter, he falls in one of these 3 categories only. Either he has no knowledge of that subject matter at all, he is completely ignorant, or he has doubtful knowledge, which means that he has some knowledge about it, but then he has lots of doubts, he has lots of clarifications that has to be made. So that is doubtful knowledge. And one who has mistaken knowledge. Mistaken knowledge means who has gained knowledge about something, but then he has mistaken it to be the perfect knowledge or proper knowledge. So all 3 come under the category of ignorance, or one who is an ignorant person. So there is no 4th category. There are only these 3. One who is totally ignorant, one who has doubts, and one who has mistaken knowledge. Now, Sri Radha Damodar Goswami continues and he says, nor can the ignorance, which is one who is devoid of knowledge, doubt, one who has doubtful knowledge, and the error, which is one who has mistaken knowledge, situated within a person, be known by direct perception, which views only the external side. So by Pratyaksha Pramana, we will never be able to understand what is the proper understanding or knowledge of the other person. Correct? The ignorance of a person cannot be understood. What doubts he has cannot be understood just by looking at that person or just by sense perception. And what kind of mistaken knowledge he has also will not be able to know without some more. We have to know some more. In only direct perception, it's not possible to understand these 3 because it views only the external side. Now, Srila Prabhupada also said that a fool is undetected till he speaks. Correct? So, till a person speaks, we will not know what is his knowledge level. Correct? Whether he's a fool, he's an intelligent person. Even in Bhagavatam also, it comes that Jadabharat and Maharaj Rahuguna, right? Jadabharat looked like an animal. Maharaj Rahuguna saw him as an animal, and his family members also thought he's so Jada. He's called Jadabharat only because it looks like he has no knowledge, no consciousness. He's just like an animal, and he's completely living in the lowest platform of consciousness. Was that a fact? No. When Maharaj Rahuguna asked Jadabharat to carry his palanquin, he was walking so that he could avoid the ants, and Rahuguna became very agitated and he chastised Jadabharat. And then Jadabharat, when he started speaking, then he came to know that, he's a great personality and he has this much amount of knowledge. But just by Pratyaksha, just by looking at just looking at Jadabharat, was Maharaj Rahuguna able to understand what kind of knowledge, understanding he has? He was not able to. So similarly, by Pratyaksha, one cannot know, one cannot possibly enlighten a person who is devoid of knowledge, who has doubtful knowledge, who has mistaken knowledge. It is not possible. Right? So then he continues, nor do the learned accept the words of one who is engaged in discourses but does not know the ignorance, doubts and errors of others. So, in the learned or those who are Panditas, they will not accept the words of one who is trying to preach to someone, but then he does not understand what mistakes or what kind of knowledge he is devoid of, what doubts he has and what errors or mistakes, mistaken knowledge that he has. And classic example for us is Srila Prabhupada's preaching. Correct? When he went to America to preach, he completely understood, or he has the understanding of what exactly was lacking in the entire society within the realm of those people. Not only in America, but in India also. The Acharyas, they understand what exactly is lacking. Correct? They know the ignorance of people. They know what kind of doubts they have and they also know what kind of mistaken knowledge they have. That's why we'll see Srila Prabhupada's preaching also. Devoid of knowledge, ignorance is that people do not know that there is a next life. People do not know that they are not this body, they are souls. People do not know that the soul's eternal relationship is with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no knowledge of all these things. So an Acharya understands that and he preaches accordingly. Similarly, one who has doubtful knowledge or one who has doubts, or who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Now there is Trinity in Hinduism. There is Brahma, there is Shiva, there is Vishnu also. And it is also said Panchapasana has to be done. That also includes Surya, Ganesh. Other deities are also there. Whom should I worship? I'm in a doubt as to who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's a mixture of ignorance as well as doubt, or how this thing should be approached, how I should learn about these things. Oh, Hinduism, this is my understanding. Is it proper or not? So this doubt and mistaken knowledge, they go hand in hand. This is also there that, I'm into Hinduism only, but then it is completely impersonal. There are several instances actually in Prabhupada's pastimes, in Prabhupada's Leela. There are several places where Srila Prabhupada is actually able to guess or judge that person as to who he is. Now in one of the memories, it comes, one devotee says that one devotee has arranged for a professor of Hinduism to come and meet Srila Prabhupada. Okay. And he is the professor of Hinduism in a university or in a college, so which means that he should be knowledgeable about what Hinduism is. So he comes and Prabhupada asks him, so what is Hinduism? You are a professor of Hinduism, so do you know what is Hinduism? And this professor, very cheekily, he replied that, I do not know what is Hinduism, you please explain. As if he wants to see what Prabhupada will explain, and then he will portray himself as someone who is very intelligent. So Srila Prabhupada caught him there. He said he knew beforehand itself this all, because Hinduism, philosophically speaking, Hinduism is actually a very vague term. Although it is used synonymously as part of Vedic culture, but the broad philosophical understanding of Hinduism is actually very hodgepodge. It's a hodgepodge Hinduism. It's not completely philosophical in that sense. It's not technical and it's not very concrete. So when he claims himself to be the professor of Hinduism, Prabhupada knew, he has lots of doubtful knowledge, he's ignorant also, and he has lots of mistaken knowledge also. So Prabhupada understands that. So he asked him, what do you mean by Hinduism? There's nothing in Vedic scriptures like Hinduism. So what is Hinduism actually? And this person, he says, very cheekily, he said, you tell me, what do you understand by Hinduism? So what did Prabhupada did not start explaining the philosophy. He turned to Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj and he said, see, he claims to be a professor of Hinduism, but then he does not know what is Hinduism. So what do you call him? And Bhakti Swarup Damodar said, Prabhupada is a cheater. And Prabhupada turned to this professor and he said, see, he is calling you a cheater, what do you have to say? And then the discussion continues like that. Why we discuss this is because Prabhupada is able to judge the lack of knowledge, or the lack of all these different kinds of knowledge that people have. It's actually quite corrupted. So he was able to understand. In several places also, without Srila Prabhupada is special that way. So although he did not have to be given any indication of one's thought process, Srila Prabhupada was able to understand what is going through a person's mind. Also, Tamal Krishna Maharaj in his memories, he speaks about this. At that time, USA, America was in war with Vietnam, and they were recruiting all these youngsters. They are drafting the youngsters into army. It was called the draft board. So whoever have completed 18 years of age, all the youngsters were called, and their checkups and other things was done. They were seen if they are fit, and it was compulsory. They were seen if they were fit to join the army, and they will be drafted into the army and sent to Vietnam to fight. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj was very apprehensive that he has already joined the Krishna consciousness movement and he did not want to go. Many of the youngsters did not want to go, but it was forced upon them. Anyway, it's a different conspiracy altogether. But he did not want to go and he was worried about it because the youngsters used to get calls from these draft boards and they were drafted into army. So he was apprehensive. Oh, when will I get the call? What will I do with my life? So in one of the lectures, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was also there, and after the lecture, he raised his hand and asked a question to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, can you please explain how the spiritual world is like? how it is like, how is the spiritual world, what are the quality, what things are there in the spiritual world. And Srila Prabhupada responds, he says, in the spiritual world, there are no draft boats. In the spiritual world, there are no draft boats, so you don't have to worry. Is that all right? Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, yes, bro, that's all right. That's how it's. Although, this is, he's special. He's special in that way, he can understand, without any pratyaksha, anuman, or without any kind of this thing, he's special, so he can understand that way. But generally speaking, when these arguments are given in Vedantic study, generally speaking, it is not possible for somebody to understand these mistakes. There's another instance also, which is mentioned at several places. Mukunda Goswami Maharaj, he also mentions that. Then it's also mentioned in by Hayagriva Prabhu in his Hare Krishna explosion. Guru Maharaj mentions that. Bhakti Vikas Maharaj mentions that in his Vyas Puja, I think in 2011. So this is instance, Prabhupada in 1966 and 67, he is giving lectures. He is giving lectures and he does not have many followers. The prominent followers were the three friends, Keith, Wally and Howard, who later on Howard became Hayagriva, then Wally becomes Umapati, and then Keith became Kirtananda Maharaj. So they were not initiated at that time. So Prabhupada was giving lectures. He was giving lectures, and in each of these lectures, he always used to speak about this Mayavadis. That these Mayavadis, they have not proper understanding, this, that and all. Always used to keep speaking about Mayavadis. And these three who were so-called followers of Prabhupada at that time, they could not understand who are these Mayavadis. Why is he always speaking about Mayavadis? They were not able to relate to him at all. So they said, okay, maybe Swamiji had some grudge with this group of people in India, and then he's just continuing that grudge here also. So okay, we'll sit through, but they were not able to understand actually that who is he speaking about. Then Srila Prabhupada explains that famous verse in 934, Manmanabha Madbhakta Madhyajimam Namaskuru. And he says, although it is mentioned very clearly here that Krishna says that you should worship me, you should always think about me, Manmana Bhava Madbhakto, you should always think about me, you should become my devotee and all. But this rascal commentator, Radha Krishnan, he says that it is not to Krishna, but it is to the unborn within Krishna who should be who should be meditated upon, who should be worshipped, and this thing. Now see, so this is nonsense, this is what he's speaking about. So at this point, then Kirtanananda, who was considered some kind of scholar in that small group that they had, they were well read in this so-called Western philosophies and other things. So he gets up and he says, oh Swamiji, why are you criticizing him? What he writes is proper only. And then he starts speaking different types of understandings and concepts which he has learned from Shankaracharya's work and other philosophers also, Huangpo, Buddha, Christ, this, that and all. Now he keeps on continuing and he speaks. And the followers of Prabhupada, those who were there, they were seeing Srila Prabhupada's face and they could see that his face was getting red. He was becoming a bit angry. Okay, what is he speaking? So then after certain tirade, after he spoke so much, then he stopped a little bit and Prabhupada asked him, so are you done? But then Keith had not been done. So he continued speaking and Prabhupada was getting angry. So after that, then he stopped. Then Prabhupada asked, so are you done now? And Keith said, yes, I am done. So then Prabhupada, he banged his fist onto the desk and then he shouted on top of his lungs, he said, this is Krishna only who has to be worshipped. Why are you denying Krishna? It is Krishna who is to be worshipped. Why are you denying Krishna? It's mentioned here, Manmana Bhava Madbhakto. It's directly mentioned. Krishna is talking about himself. So many times he says that it's me. So why are you denying Krishna? Why are you talking about something? Impersonalism. Why are you not accepting that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? He shouted for some time. And then then these three associates, they were able to understand, oh, so it was actually we, the Mayavadis, about whom Prabhupada has been speaking for all this time. So this is our impersonalism within our heart, which we have been cultivating for such a long time, and Prabhupada has been speaking to us only, although we were not able to understand. Right? So Prabhupada's Pranam Mantra also is Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarne. The Western world is indeed influenced by impersonalism, but they do not classify it as impersonalism, that's all. The understanding is impersonalistic only, but it's not classified like that. So therefore they do not know, oh, he's speaking about Mayavad, we have nothing to do with it. But Mayavad is there within their heart. It was there within their heart. So, again, coming back to our topic, that is why it is said that learned accept the words of one who is engaged in discourses, nor do the learned accept the words of one who is engaged in discourses, but does not know the ignorance, doubts and errors of others. So therefore, one should know, when Prabhupada preached, he understood what each and every person, what misconception he has, what type of ignorance he has, and that it should be removed. So they were all able to make a personal connection to Srila Prabhupada that way. Right? So Srila Radhamodar Goswami continues and he says, consequently, even unwillingly, Charvaka had to accept inference. So now we are making a case that Pratyaksha itself is not complete to understand the ignorance, the doubts and mistakes of others. Therefore, at least inference has to be used. Now we can also understand, there are several examples about this also. Now, say for example, if a doctor has to know whether a patient is sick or how he should be treated, he cannot directly gain everything, all knowledge only through this Pratyaksha itself. He will be able to see the symptoms which is gathered through his senses, through Pratyaksha. But then what type of treatment has to be given to that particular person, that is dependent upon his knowledge which he has gained through his medical studies. Correct? So therefore he has to use Anuman Pramana there to find out what exactly is the problem and how he should be treated. One might come, say I have a headache, but there can be many reasons of a headache. Correct? There can be some amount of water might have entered through the sinus into the head, that might be causing the headache, or there might be some vision problem that might be causing the headache. So a doctor, just although he understands the symptoms or he knows the symptoms by looking at that person, okay, and how he's suffering, but to actually treat that particular thing, one has to resort to inference. So that only he will be able to gain perfect knowledge about that person. Now, another example which I thought of was in our Gurukul itself. There is a boy who makes lots of spelling mistakes. Okay, so whenever he's writing a test, or whenever he's writing on his notebook, if we dictate something to him and he writes, there are lots of spelling mistakes that he makes. So through Pratyaksha, I can understand that he's making spelling mistakes, and that's about it. I can understand only that much. Now, if I have to understand what actually is the cause of why he's making the spelling mistakes, I have to do some analysis based upon what knowledge I have. I have to use Anuman Pramana there. I have some knowledge, I have some understanding of what all the reasons when a child can make spelling mistakes, and then I have to find out what exactly is his problem. Now, very basically speaking, there can be two problems. Either he has memorized those spellings incorrectly, correct? Or else he does not even have the understanding of how the letters sound. What is the sound of different letters of A, B, C, D, how they should be employed in those words also. So this understanding of what exactly is the problem, I'll never be able to come to by just looking at the spelling mistakes. Correct? I have to use inference, I have to use Anuman based upon the knowledge that I have, and I'll be able to understand, oh, he's making spelling mistakes like this. It's not like one spelling he remembers correctly. Because if using the same word in multiple places, and all the different places there are different mistakes. So it's not the same spelling, the same wrong spelling is not using in different places, but in different places it has different spellings. Which means that actually his understanding of the phonics itself, his understanding of how a letter sounds and how letters combine and how they sound itself is not proper. So therefore that has to be corrected so that he can start writing properly. He can make those words with proper spellings. Right? So this, we have a child like this. So we are working on that. So now that is not possible through this Charvaka's philosophy of only direct perception. Correct? We have to use inference. Direct perception means you can get knowledge of very rudimentary and basic things. But then if you really want to impart knowledge, if you really want to help that child, Charvaka's direct perception is not going to work. Correct? So this is the case which is being made by Srila Radha Damodar Goswami, saying Charvaka's philosophy, one cannot completely remove the ignorance, doubts and mistakes of a person just by using direct perception. So therefore, Charvaka is mocked in this way by the Nyaya philosophers. They say, Charvak tava charvangim jarato viksha garbhinim pratyaksha matra vishwasa ghanashwasam ke mujjasi. Hey Charvak, who believes only in direct perception, why are you sighing heavily after seeing a beautiful wife pregnant by a paramour? So paramour means a lover who is not the husband of that wife. Now, did you see Pratyaksha, what happened with his wife, with his lover? He did not see. But then he sees his wife pregnant, and he did not make his wife pregnant. So now he's having a huge shwasa, saying, oh, how did that happen? So it's mocking Charvaka basically, it's mocking Charvaka's philosophy. Pratyaksha is useless. Don't worry only on Pratyaksha. So our acharyas, they are also, all these philosophers, Amazing examples they give. So now the case for inference is being made. So by means of inference, after having concluded, understood the ignorance, doubts and errors of others on the basis of indicative signs, which are the different opinions and contradictory statements, when one engages in removing such ignorance, etc., then his words should be accepted. So now, see indicative signs. So not only prataksha, but if a person expresses his different opinions, he gives some contradictory statements, he expresses himself, he has his doubts, he asks questions, then one will be able to understand that what type of ignorance he has, what all he is ignorant of, what all doubts he has, and what is the error or what is the mistaken understanding that he has, and which then can be corrected. Now this is how all, if you see the Vedic literatures, Upanishads, Srimad Bhagavatam, even Bhagavad Gita also, it's in the format of questions and answers. Correct? So in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna has so many doubts. He's ignorant. He's in the first chapter, second chapter, Arjuna is expressing his ignorance that he does not know the actual properties of the soul. He is not able to kind of detach himself from his body. He's taking off his body relatives, this, that and all. So he was in ignorance. Then Krishna speaks and he removes that ignorance. Then after that has been done, then Arjuna has doubts. Okay, if you are saying like this, but then am I supposed to follow this karma marga or am I supposed to follow buddhi marga? Should I do karma yoga or buddhi yoga? I am not able to understand. Doubt is there. Then Krishna explains furthermore and he clarifies all his doubts. And as Bhagavad Gita goes, Arjuna asks several questions to Krishna and Krishna answers all these questions. So that way, there are indicative signs. Although Krishna explains, Prabhupada says, in the second chapter itself, Bhagavad Gita, all the concepts of Bhagavad Gita has been explained, but it's not in systematic manner, that's all. But after that, from third chapter onwards, Arjuna still has doubts. All the philosophy is explained in the second chapter itself, but Arjuna still has doubts. And all these doubts over a period of all this rest of the 16 chapters, it is all covered. So these are called as indicative signs, where one expresses one's doubts, one's mistaken ideas, and then the other person is able to understand that and respond accordingly. So this is the case of inference. And similarly in Bhagavatam also, Shaunaka Rishi is representing all the rishis. He is asking questions to Suta Goswami. Maharaj Parikshit is asking questions to Shukdev Goswami. And this Vidura Maitreya Samvad is there. So many conversations are there, and it's made such. So these shastras are given to us in such manner, like conversations, like questions and answers, so that these questions are what is inherent within us also. And as they are answered, then all the doubts and misapprehensions within ourselves are also clarified. Correct? So that is how the shastras are given. So through our intelligence, we can understand what actually is proper knowledge, what actually is not proper knowledge, and lead our life accordingly. So these are called as indicative signs. So when questions are asked and when contradictory statements are put forth, saying you are saying like this, but then my understanding is like this, because of this, this and this. So how are you saying like this? So now it indicates that, okay, this person has taken resort of these references, but then he has this mistaken understanding. So therefore, I should counter him with these examples, that this is what Samanvaya has to be done. These scriptures speak like this. So I have to infer, I have to gather what he knows, and then based on that, I have to give him a response. So therefore, inference is indeed required for removing the doubts or removing the ignorance of people. So this is the case for inference. But then there are other philosophers also who actually says that inference itself is enough. We don't have to know anything else from any other pramana. So this is Vaisheshika's view. So in the Vaisheshika view, verbal testimony and comparison are not accepted as different kinds of evidence, for they are understood as being included in inference itself. So they say inference is the topmost pramana, logic is the topmost pramana, and comparison is upamana. Yeah. So upamana and shabda pramana is actually subservient to inference. So this is taking the case too far, and the reason is mentioned here. This idea is foolish, for inference is not applied in understanding the movement of the planets and so forth. So if we have to understand how the planets move in conjunction with different stars and in conjunction with different constellations with respect to this Bhumandala and so many other things, It is not possible to understand only through logic. It is not possible to understand only through pratyaksha. It must be understood by Shabda Pramana only. Someone has to come and teach. Then only one can understand the movement of the planets and so on. And then he says that we shall explain this in detail subsequently. So what we have seen till now is that pratyaksha is definitely completely useless to gain knowledge. Inference has its uses, but then it also cannot explain certain things which we can actually see, or which we see that this knowledge or the objects do exist, but I will not be able to gain perfect knowledge about them. Now when we see the sun or the moon or the movement of the sun or the moon, we will not be able to gain knowledge about that using our own logic. We will not be able to gain knowledge about that just by seeing the pratyaksha pramana. To see how the sun globe is actually, how moon is actually, how they move accordingly, why Amavasya occurs, why Paurnami or Purnima occurs, why there is lunar eclipse, why there is solar eclipse, how the moon moves through the 27 nakshatras, and all those things is not possible to understand by Upamana or by Pratyaksha Pramana. We have to go to a teacher who actually understands these things, and then only we will be able to understand what it is. Now, just a side point is, modern astronomers, they say that, oh, we see through the telescope and then we will be able to monitor how the stars are moving, how the planets are moving, and then we will be able to understand all these things. But according to their admission itself, they derived all this knowledge from the Babylonians, who were part of the Middle East and Europe, and from them this is considered as the stepping stone, or as the starting point of modern astronomy. They came from Babylonians, but then there are evidences that these Babylonians actually got the evidence from the Surya Siddhanta, and from other astronomical treatises which were there in the Vedic scriptures before. So although there are gaps in history, it's not recorded history, but then there are also references which actually traces the modern astronomy back to Vedic scriptures. Similarly, it is applicable to all different kinds of knowledges that is prevalent in the material world also. There are books around that which have been written with giving evidences from different sources. So just a side point, the point is that inference is actually not complete, or it's not enough to understand certain things pertaining to the movement of planets and so forth. It's just an example, and there are other things also. We do not know. We say that there is next life, but how do we understand there is a next life? We have not seen through pratyaksha. Through Anuman Pramana, Krishna tries to explain. He says, Dehino asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantara prapte dhiras tatara muhyati. So now this is Anumana, which is used under the category of Shabda. Whatever Krishna speaks is Vedic Pramana, Shabda Pramana, but then he uses logic to make us understand of how it actually happens. Correct? But still all the logic makes sense here, but whether it actually happens or not, we do not have an experience of that. We just accept it on the basis of Krishna's words. Right? There are several things like this. So Pratyaksha and Anuman can lead one to knowledge of some things to some extent, but perfect knowledge can be had only through Shabda Pramana. So this conclusion is given here by the author here. He says, thus according to the wise, the forms of evidence are direct perception, inference and verbal testimony. They declare that comparison and so on are not different kinds of evidence, for they are included within these three. So direct perception, inference and verbal testimony itself is an wide umbrella to accommodate all the other different pramanas also. So all the other pramanas are included in Pratyaksha, Anuman and Shabda. So Upamana is a combination of Shabda, Anuman and Pratyaksha. For instance, the sentence, a gayal is a bull, is like a bull, is a case of comparison. And the understanding derived from it is clearly verbal testimony. So when someone says that a gayal is like a bull, now we are hearing it. It is an authority. It's a Paurushaya Shabda which someone is saying that a gayal is like a bull. So then we are accepting that knowledge. Oh, so this gayal is, I know what a bull looks like. So a gayal, although I have heard of that, but then a gayal looks like a bull. So he has a picture of how a gayal looks like. So now it's verbal testimony, he has heard from an authority. The notion that the word Gavaya directly denotes something similar to the bull is also inference, but a comparison is being made. So within his logic, he has an information of how a bull looks like, and then he is making a comparative, an inference that, oh, maybe a gayal also looks like that. He may have this big head, he may have a horn, and his hump might be big, then there may be 4 legs. So how does he know all this about the gayal? By inference. Correct? So Anuman Pramana is also included in this. So now it's elaborated more. For example, the word bull directly denotes something being a bull. The word Gayal is used for something similar to a bull, right? Something similar to a bull, and thus it directly denotes a Gayal. This knowledge is certainly inference. Through logic, one is able to understand how the animal looks like. As per the cognitions of the similarity with the bull when a Gayal is in proximity to one's eyes, that is direct perception. So a person who's actually speaking that, how did he get that knowledge? He has seen the bull and he has seen Gayal also. And that is how he is able to understand that a Gayal actually looks like a bull. So for him, the knowledge comes through direct perception. So this Upamana is actually a combination of Shabda, Anuman, Pratyaksha only. So it is not in a special category. It's not a different category of its own. It can be understood through the combination of these three Pramanas only. So we don't have to actually categorize it as separate Pramana independent of these three. So when we are saying Shabda, Anuman and Pratyaksha, we are seeing the other 5 Pramanas, that these 5 Pramanas are actually not independent of these 3 Pramanas. They are dependent on these 3 Pramanas only. So they are only special extensions of these Pramanas and are actually not independent. So if we know these 3 Pramanas properly, if we know Pratyaksha properly, what is their pros, what is their cons, what is their advantages, their limitations. We know about Anumana, their advantages, limitations, and Shabda, how perfect knowledge can be gained through Shabda and which Shabda has to be recognized and which Shabda has to be accepted as authority for specific things. That itself should suffice. These 3 Pramanas should suffice for our understanding of Pramana, the entire thing. We don't have to resort to Upamana, Arthapati, Anupalabdhi, Sambhava or Cheshtha, because they are all only extensions of these 3 Pramanas. So they are not independent of these 3. Now Arthapati is also included in Anumana. So someone may argue fatness without eating during the day is unexplained, without eating at night, and therefore the evidence of one's eating at night is the conjecture consequent to the fact that fatness would be unexplained otherwise. It is not so, for conjecture is included within inference. Since Devadatta is fat without eating during the day, he eats at night. Without eating during the day, one who does not eat at night is not fat. Just as anyone who does not eat either during the day or night is not fat. So this is logical reasoning. You see, the hetu or the reason is one who eats is fat. Correct? Is healthy. When it's translated as fat, what it means is a healthy person. He's healthy. And one who does not eat is actually not healthy. So this is an inferential logic. We are using logic to understand this. So therefore, it's not a separate pramana in itself. It is included within inference. And then it says, yet this is not his case. This is not a separate pramana. Therefore, he must be eating at night. This is understood by Kevala Vyatireka Anuman. So now this Kevala Vyatireka Anuman is basically, there are different types of Anuman Pramanas. There is Kevala Anvai Anuman, there is Kevala Vyatireka Anuman, there is Anvai Vyatireka Anuman. So those Nyayikas who actually go very deep into this, they have classified these things into different types. We will not be getting into details of this because it's not required for us. But the point that is being made by Radha Damodar Goswami is that this example that we are giving, that conjecture is actually separate pramana, because without conjecture we will not be able to understand how Devadatta is very healthy, although he is not eating a day and all. It's actually a subclassification of the Anuman Pramana only, and it comes under the category of Kevala Vyatireka Anuman. So it's not a separate category in its own, it's included within Anuman Pramana itself. So therefore we'll go ahead. Sorry. Anupalabdhi is included in Pratyaksha. Right? Non-cognition is also not a different kind of evidence. Since the non-existence of objects like an earthen pot is perceived by visual perception. We are seeing whether a key is present, where my keys are there in the table or not. So what are we using? We are using our Pratyaksha Pramana. We are looking at it. It's just Abhava is there. It is not there. But the knowledge is actually gained through Pratyaksha only, through my senses. So any knowledge that is gained through senses, it is to be categorized as Pratyaksha Pramana only. So although one might say Anupalabdhi is a separate Pramana, it's independent from Pratyaksha, but it's totally dependent on the Pratyaksha Pramana. A sense organ reveals non-existence by means of an attribute. Non-existence, contact within its range, and therefore direct perception is not inapplicable. Now Sambhava is included in Anuman Pramana because inclusion is the comprehension that 10 are included within 100. So one who has knowledge of the counting or numbers, he knows that 10 is also included within 100. If I have 100 rupees, I know I have 10 rupees within that. If I want to spend 10 rupees, I cannot say, although I have 100 rupees, I don't have 10 rupees, I will not be able to spend. Correct. You have 100 rupees, you will be able to spend 10 rupees out of it, correct? So you already have, it's already included. So it's inference only that 100 does not exist apart from 10 and other minor denominations, which indicates that 10 and other denominations exist within 100. So I'll be able to make use of it. So it's logic. So Sambhava is also included in Anuman Pramana itself. Aitihya is included in Shabda. So being based on undetermined speakers, tradition is doubtful and hence it is not an evidence. However, if it is ascertained that the speaker is an authority, then tradition is included within verbal testimony. Because how is the knowledge gained? Through a person who is actually speaking or who is actually propagating that knowledge. Now, followers of the Vedanta school of philosophy, founded by Badarayana Vedavyas, including both Vaishnavas and Advaitavadis, consider the first three means of knowing to be the only independent means and all other pramanas to be special applications of these first three. Correct? So this is a comment which comes, I think, in Tattva Sandarbha itself. So both Mayavadis, Advaitavadis and Vaishnavas, they accept these three pramanas because all other pramanas are included within that. Now we also discuss about Cheshtha, about gesture. Now gesture is also comes under the category of Pratyaksha Pramana because one is looking at it. One is looking at these gestures and then he is able to understand that. So it comes primarily under Pratyaksha Pramana. And Arsha is all the rishis who are propagating that knowledge. So that comes under either Aitihya, which is the category of Shabda Pramana. Right? So of the all 10 Pramanas, the 7 are included in the 3, Pratyaksha, Anuman and Shabda. So therefore only 3 Pramanas are applicable. And these are the only 10 ways through which knowledge can be gained for anything. Material knowledge, scientific knowledge, technological knowledge, this, that and all. The only way in which knowledge can be gained is through these 10 and specifically through these 3. There is nothing else apart from these pramanas which can be used for gaining knowledge. So this is like a perfect understanding of what pramanas are, and it's applicable both in the mundane sphere as well as in the spiritual sphere. There is nothing else. There is no other method of knowledge through which we can gain proper knowledge. Right? So this is mentioned. Therefore, only 3 pramanas are applicable. There are only 3 kinds of evidences. So this is also provided in Manu Samhita. So it's mentioned that Pratyaksham Anumanam cha Shastram cha Vividhagamam Trayam Suviditam Karyam Dharma Shuddhim Abhipsata. It is similarly stated by Manu Samhita that one who desires to attain a clear understanding of Dharma should be well conversant with these 3: direct perception, inference and the various sacred scriptures. Correct. Then we also have shortcomings of Pratyaksha and Anuman. So this we will discuss tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll be completing this chapter and we'll start with the second chapter also. So we'll move ahead with that. So we'll stop now. If you have any questions, it's already quite late. So maybe questions can be taken offline, I guess. Oh, okay, just one question.
Regarding this Brahaspati,
yes.
talk about there appears 2 types of Brahaspati.
Yeah.
When Brahaspati has already taken the form of Shukra,
Yes.
then why again it is referred as Brahaspati Vakya? It should be a Shukrayati.
Yeah, but as I said, no, we are not sure if this is the same Brahaspati or not. And one more thing is that, see, the Upanishads, there was a reference, like in the previous week, there was a reference that Upanishads talk about both Aparavidya and Paravidya also. So they are speaking about different kinds of knowledge, and they are also saying that how proper knowledge is corrupted. And how perfect knowledge is what it is, and proper knowledge, we see that in Bhagavad Gita also. Krishna says that how knowledge is corrupted. It comes in 16th and 17th chapter, how demoniac people, how they act, and how they will not be able to tasmat chatram pramanante karya kara vijanito. If they do not follow Shastra properly, they do not know what is to be done, what is not to be done. They are bewildered like that. So now, because these are narrations and there are stories also that comes in the Upanishads, in the different Puranas, it is mentioned there that demons got bewildered because of this reason. So because Brahaspati came in the form of Shukra and then he bewildered these demons like this, therefore it happened like that. Now I do not know exactly the context of what is given in this particular Maitrayana Upanishad, but the understanding is that these things are also mentioned. And in Bhagavatam also at several places, we see, I'm just trying to think of an example, where it is said that a person, he did like this and because of this happened and he actually fell down due to that. So these things are also mentioned so that it is instructive to us. So yeah, so with respect to this particular question, now I think I don't know the context, but then it's mentioned how the demons got bewildered. It's because of this. And we are not sure also whether this Brihaspati is the one who actually propagated these Nastika philosophies or not. As we said, it's not clear. Scholars have differing opinions. Rishis, all these so-called rishis, modern rishis are also, modern scholars are also like rishis, different opinions, whether it's the same Brihaspati who propagated this Nastikavad or whether it is a different Brihaspati altogether. But there's a reference from the Upanishads, but we are not very sure of that point. Okay, so we'll stop here. Thank you so much. Shri Radha Damodar Goswami ki, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.